the black arts of the 60s is the black arts of the 60s. Never to be duplicated or replicated. It still reverberates through all four corners. It reverberates in Vietnam, in Iraq, in South Africa, in Japan, in the United States, in Brazil, you name it. The writers that came out of that movement and the painters and the musicians, from Coltrane to Baldwin to Larry Neal, it still reverberates. Nicky Giovanni, it still reverberates. And there are pale attempts at trying to duplicate it. Let's hope and pray that we'll have a vanguard, because it was so essential. There was competition, but there was no cutthroat. It was truly African communal artistic experience, of which I find myself to be a minor player, but I was there. Ed Bullens, it was just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Romare.
It was a great movement. To me, it was one of the greatest Renaissance movement. And then you had other participants, different groups, RAM, that was ran by Lynn Fraser, who is a writer. You had the Panthers. Everybody was involved, culture as well as political. People's churches was involved. So many people was involved. Politicians was involved. Everybody was involved in this movement of the 60s and the 70s. And it was a glorious time, and I repeat that. The artists for the first time, particularly black, was able to be free to express themselves, no matter what people thought, and they had gotten that freedom to express themselves regardless of what one thought about them or what one thought about their work. It didn't matter to them. They was going to continue to create and develop in the way that they saw it and the way that they felt that God had given them a way to express conditions of a people in a foreign land. In the 60s, 70s, Jamesu, which was James Sneed, and myself started something called 20th Century Creators, and we moved from downtown New York to Harlem, and then from there came out to Wausi, and from there came other movement, but you had other types of artists rather than the visual artists. And then Tejumola and I left when 20th Century and Wausi got into it, so Tejumola and I left and went to Brooklyn, and then we began to get involved or setting stuff up in Brooklyn. And did some major shows there with galleries. One of the galleries come to mind is a gallery that Eduardo Stana opened up, was called Caribou. And that was on St. Mark's Place. And that was a very large show with different artists participating. I don't have the names now, some are going on, some still around. And that's basically how the visual artists kind of got started in Brooklyn. The arts in Brooklyn was all over Bed-Stuy. Bed-Stuy was the main portion, and then you had Jimmy Giddens and Laverne Giddens. They came out with a new sculpture workshop, in which they had dealt with sculpture and all that. And later on, we got together and set up a theater workshop called the New Sculpture Theater Workshop. And you had a lot of galleries opened up. Nat Pinkney with the Beginning Art Gallery. You had me and Tejumola over at the Reflection. And then we, in turn, opened up a couple more galleries, And sometime in the middle of all of that came a show at Brooklyn Museum when they was over at the Community Gallery, which we opened up that with quite a few artists.
taken place, the movement that started happening in the country, that the society in terms of the structure started paying attention to what was happening. It happened in the 50s in terms of the intention, but this movement was going on a long time ago. It just became prominent, and we had a greater platform to speak on.
Artist, sculptor, Brooklyn resident since 1969. I was a member of the East from 1971 to 1977.